All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just to kind of reflect on what we talked about, we had our AEW Dynamite review. We also had our Thursday Night Wrestling preview, Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance about to blow up. So definitely going to pay more attention to that moving on forward. But before we move on to our third segment, sorry, I keep wanting to move on to that fourth segment. Why do I want to talk about Logan Paul so much? I'm just kidding, no. But yeah, don't forget to use the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. Give me your questions. Give me some statements. Give me what you guys feel about maybe, some of the wrestling that's been going on, maybe that I have not touched on. Maybe there could be like something going on in like, state promo. There's a lot of state wrestling that goes around, so, I try my best to kind of keep up on everything. But ultimately, you know, I don't. If you find someone who has who gets the best information, who's not me, stop listening to them immediately. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not a computer. Although I wish I was. That'd be pretty cool. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be a lot of information. Probably hard to sleep at night, without, a couple glasses of wine. So, all right, moving on. So we're going to talk about Jim Ross admitted to the hospital. Definitely going to keep tabs on this. Definitely going to see if there's anything that kind of moves forward with updating his his health and stuff like that. Because I love Jim Ross. I get from the bottom of my heart, the main reason why I watched wrestling from the get go was because of Jim Ross. Jim Ross, he made me fall in love with wrestling. So Jim Ross took to Twitter and he said, and I quote, "Expected trip to the ER in Norman this morning. Shortness of breath. That's all for now." And at his age, that's scary. And yeah, he's definitely had some, precondition. He had what is the underlying health issues to kind of begin with. I think he's had. No, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say no, no. I'm not going to put that bad juju in the air. Uh, so I don't know. He, God, I can't even talk about this with a straight face. That's how I'm like, oh, like, I hope nothing bad happens. Oh, I pray to God. You know what? Let's take time right now, guys. We're gonna take a break from the podcast and let's all, pray for Jim Ross. Just send a prayer. Be like, if you're going to bed tonight, be like, hey, I hope Jim Ross is well. You know, moving on. So he's one of the most beloved, iconic voices in the wrestling world. I'll bet you a lot of you guys know about that. The voice of the Attitude Era, in my opinion, the ruthless aggression era. His passion makes you fall in love with wrestling. And if you've ever kind of been in a wrestling kind of fandom, and if you ever kind of run into other wrestlers, or not wrestling fans, you kind of like for me, I would quote Jim Ross more than I would say, like, oh, can you smell what The Rock is cooking? Or Austin 316 just whooped your ass. Like, no, I would honestly quote a lot of Jim Ross's favorite famous quotes more than any of the other wrestlers, which is kind of crazy. Which is kind of crazy to think about because this guy, he was a commentator. He wasn't necessarily out in the middle of the ring, doing high flying, jumps and stuff like that, throwing people on announce tables, going up tables, ladders, and chairs, etc., etc. This guy was it's just his voice. It's a powerful voice that can honestly make something as prestigious and something as successful as like let's just take in consideration about we're talking about baseball, the World Series. The World Series this year was the first World Series without John Smoltz and Joe Buck, and to be honest, it was bad. And I'm not saying it was bad because, it was between the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I'm an Angels fan. But it was bad because you're so used to hearing Joe Buck. You're so used to hearing Joe Buck, you know, hit up in the air. Caught. Like, it's just like his voice is, like it just brings you in. And you can't help but to just be like, infatuated, intoxicated, and just like you love this guy. You love this voice. Like, if you ever can fall in love with the voice, and it's not in terms of like music or like, I remember the first time I heard the Beatles, and I was like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes things just click. Things just click, like Jim Ross, wrestling. Al Michaels, Sunday Night Football, not Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football, I think Al Michaels is like, you can kind of tell in his voice that he's like, kind of wish I was back on NBC right now. But I don't know, kind of love Jim Ross, hope the best for him, and he's definitely a lot of passion. And he was supposed to commentate for Double or Nothing. He was, and I was gonna buy the pay per view, and I don't want to sound like a jerk off, but I wanted to buy the pay-per-view mostly because I wanted to see AEW Double or Nothing, yes. But to be brutally honest, that was probably like 45% of the reason. The other reason was like, oh, I want to hear Jim Ross speak again, dude. Like, oh, I can't wait. And lo and behold, I didn't get that, man. We didn't get that. Hopefully, like I said, he's all, if he makes a speedy recovery, and this is a big ass maybe, like, and he makes his way back to Las Vegas, that would be the best. My birthday's on Monday. My birthday's May 27th. My birthday wish is to have Jim Ross commentate on AEW's Double or Nothing. No, I'm just kidding. No. His health is priority. Definitely hope he gets some rest. Definitely hope, he, becomes a lot, he becomes better. So yeah, his absence will be felt. It really will be felt. And I don't know, even although he did leave the WWE, he will always be probably the best to ever do it in terms of WWE. Like just kind of flipping on, real quick about his iconic kind of like not I don't want to say speeches because that's not kind of the way they are, but like just his like just think about it. The first one I kind of have here is you had Mike Tyson being brought into the WWE, and then you had Tyson and Austin, all hell's about to break loose. Like he made that moment more powerful than it actually was. Like, if you think about it from another retrospective, like if you're a wrestling fan, you see Mike Tyson kind of come in the ring, you're like, what the hell is this guy doing here? And like if you're a boxer watching WWE and you see Mike Tyson in a choreographed ring, you're like, what the hell is that guy doing here? Like Jim Ross kind of made sense of it all. Kind of like I felt like he was, he can bring people together. And I feel like at that moment, boxing and wrestling fans became one. Like you had the bad boy of the of boxing, the Iron Mike Tyson. Then you also have, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the rebel of WWF. So he was able to kind of bring those people, kind of bring those guys together, pro wrestling. This was all obviously an episode of Raw in 1998, the famous promo. Next, we have another, quote from Jim Ross: "Stone Cold, Stone Cold, Stone Cold." Like it just echoes throughout like my ears every single time I see Stone Cold. Obviously, him and Jim Ross, they share like they actually have a friendship. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Jim Ross are probably the closest out of any of the wrestlers that's ever kind of been together. I would say even closer than Triple H and Shawn Michaels. I would say even closer than, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Obviously, Stone Cold Steve Austin, beat Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14, beginning the Attitude Era. And at this time, Shawn Michaels also was not in a good place where he hurt his back against the casket match against The Undertaker. So he was kind of due for some time off. He was having problems, outside of the ring, in terms of substance abuse and alcohol and stuff like that. But ultimately, this was kind of like the passing of the torch, something that Vince McMahon and the WWE thought one thing about Shawn was like, sometimes they were like, okay, like, although he doesn't really do it, what we want him to do per se, he's going to go out there, bust his ass, put on a great show, night in and night out. Doesn't matter if he's in a bad mood, this and that and the other. This kind of like gave people like kind of like the reassurance. I don't know how to say it, but kind of like that comfortable feeling. If you're a WWE creative officer, you're like, man, what the F's going to happen to us when Shawn, he's injured. So then, they kind of got Stone Cold, King of the Ring winner, put the strap on him, and bam, the rest is history. The beginning of the Austin, era, definitely, Stone Cold, Stone Cold, Stone Cold. And next we have The Undertaker and Mankind, where Jim Ross commentated that match as well, where he said, "Good God Almighty, they've killed him," and he was talking about Mankind, and everybody was in awe because what have transpired in front of them, where Mankind was thrown all the way from the top of the Hell in a Cell and landed on the commentary, was thrown through the top of the Hell in a Cell, landed inside the ring that put a dent in it. Like it was absolutely insane. I remember watching this and I was like, dude, like, is this really? Like, I was a little kid too, so when I was a little kid, I thought things were like actually real, and I saw the Undertaker, and I was like, this devil worshiper. Just kidding, no. Like, but in all reality, even like in conversations and interviews with the Undertaker like said like when in that picture, kind of to the right. he said like he looked down and he was like he felt like in disbelief, but it was hard for him. Like he could not break character. The Undertaker Mark Calloway was like, I was trying so hard not to break character. I was genuinely concerned for Mick Foley's health, and well being, and I know it's just. And then you have Jim Ross. Jim Ross is making it all come alive, baby. 110%. King of the Ring, 1998. Definitely badass call from Jim Ross. All right, next we have Stone Cold and Vince McMahon, and his famous JR's famous iconic quote: "Stone Cold is shaking hands with Satan himself." Obviously, this was kind of you see the corporate villain that you kind of see in every Marvel movie, like Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man, or you have Kingpin from the Spider-Man series. You have not I want to say Doc Ock wouldn't be there from Spider-Man, where you just kind of have these guys that just seem like they're kind of corporate pigs, and kind of like that kind of that plot. Like I said, a lot of kind of superhero thing, kind of kind of mimics this kind of thing where you kind of have the villain, and then you have essentially you had the corporate villain and the rebel of the company join forces, and the fans were absolutely shocked. They were like jaws on the ground, like it was crazy because Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon had a huge blurry relationship where Vince McMahon constantly he pissed himself in front of everybody. So with the when he had the gun, and it was totally fake and it was totally awesome. But then also again, like Jim Ross's personal relationship with Stone Cold Steve Austin, he saw like his close best friend betray the fandom of WWE. All the Stone Cold Steve Austin fans out there were like, "What? Like, what is he doing? Like, he helped him beat The Rock at WrestleMania? Like, dude, like that's just this is ridiculous. This is too much." The reason why that moment was so important was because of Jim Ross. Another Jim Ross moment where you have, and I quote, "The $1 million princess, Stephanie McMahon, has become a Dairy Queen." When, during the invasion of 2001, Kurt Angle came out and he started spreading a whole bunch of people with milk. Obviously, Austin did it before with the corporate, with The Rock, all that. And then you saw Kurt Angle kind of pull out his like little version of it. He came out with the milk truck, and it was funny as hell. It was so I this love Kurt Angle and the way he kind of cut this promo. Absolutely awesome, absolutely sick as hell. And even yeah, he had another famous quote that went along with this. He said, "Milkomania is running wild." Like that's Jr. That's Jim Ross. Freaking love Jim Ross, man. He's been part of wrestling for the longest time. And last, we're kind of running out of time here, so I want to, finish this up. Next we have, him talking about Triple H. Does he have no conscience? Does he have no heart? Does he have no soul? And this was highly because, like, Jim Ross kind of portrayed Triple H. Triple H's run as a heel, of course, because when Triple H turned babyface, Jim Ross had a whole bunch of also iconic, speeches and, kind of comments that kind of, preluded that as well. And, he kind of saw Triple H as inhuman. He saw him as the devil, using the sledgehammer to turn his back on his friend, Shawn Michaels, who took a step away from wrestling, and they challenged him at SummerSlam. And like it was just cool because of Jim Ross. Mostly because, obviously, I love Triple H and Shawn Michaels, but I would, not saying that these wrestling moments wouldn't have really meaned anything if, if it was like Michael Cole commenting or something like that. But, it would have been cool. Yeah, it would have been cool. But I think it was like 2 times or maybe 3 times or even 10 times as badass when Jim Ross, kind of did what he did, said what he said, and his voice that just drew you in as a fan. The passion, the love and respect he shares for these superstars definitely was portrayed, watching him. So, definitely love that. So, guys, don't go anywhere. Segment 4, we're going to talk about Logan Paul's title reign hits 200 days. Pretty impressive. Logan Paul is definitely the real deal in terms of wrestling, and we're going to talk about it as soon as we come back. So, hey, don't go anywhere.